I try to go to my Olive Garden, I try to go to my Chili's. Prices are nearly double, Mayor Hudspeth, double what they used to be. And why is that? Because of inflation, because we have a government that is getting us off energy independence and that is trying to make us reliant on batteries. And we know right now they're taxing us through the roof. A family can barely afford to feed themselves. And how am I supposed to do it? My wife, her boyfriend, they come back from Panda Express all the time. They never bring me an order of orange chicken. Never once. They go to Chili's, they get the dip trio. There's 3 dips in the dip trio. They don't give me one of the dip. Not the queso, not the skillet queso, not the regular salsa. Nothing. And luckily, she's a popular OnlyFans model. So if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be able to make it, all right? So it just sucks right now. Things are so bad. You basically have to, your wife to pose nude on the internet in order to make it. That's how bad things are.
I've watched these videos and thought to myself, I don't know how he does that. Really smart, very, very funny, part of the Blaze family. Alex Stein, welcome.
Wow, what a pleasure. And I hate to just start off by yelling and screaming, but I'm telling you, it's such a surreal moment. I'm sitting here watching, literally one of the most legendary broadcasters in the history of American media. I'm not even trying to kiss your dear ear. I mean, Glenn Beck is a revolutionary guy, and I'm sitting here, an idiot that goes and acts like a buffoon and basically culture jams and brings up the most absurd parts of our culture and an Andy Kaufman, bow, and you love it. It makes me feel so good.
Oh, yeah. You are... Andy Kaufman didn't want anyone in on the joke, I think, at times. But you have that ability to do what he did of just deadpan, never break. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, I was dropped on my head, I think, as a baby. Honestly, I think I was. But on a serious note, though, with the form of comedy that I like to use, the technique, I like to blend absurdity with reality.
Yeah.
And the world has become so absurd, you almost have to use absurdity to fight the absurdity, at least to...
But you have to now, because it used to... We would have used today's examples 10 years ago as absurdities.
Well, 100%. But I mean, now you look at Leah Thomas, swam on the men's team for 3 years and gets to swim against the women and become an NCAA champion. I mean, we're just declining our country and our, the trajectory that the American country is on. And I know I think you really woke up after 9/11. But I mean, after 9/11, we've just been downhill in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's been that. I think that was the peak of American society, is the end of the 90s, early 2000s.
So you had such a fascinating career. The show Cheaters.
Yes, sir.
You produced?
So I was one of the producers. Let me just try to
That show was good for a while.
It was on 17 seasons. It's
17 seasons?
But listen, Glenn.
How old are you?
I'm 35. So listen, let me tell you this. This is the great story. You'll love it because you're a movie buff. So, and it's actually a sad story. So I worked there in college. Then I went to LA and and if you guys don't know this, Glenn Beck is the best extra in the history of Cheers. Type in Glenn Beck Cheers. He's there doing the pantomiming. He's perfect. If you guys want some legendary content. But I went to LA. I didn't have a job, and I went to Central Casting my first week there. And because I was young when I went out there, I was 23.
You were on The Office?
I was on The Office. I was on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Dark Knight. But I was just an extra. That's not a big deal. But hanging out on the set, I was able to get production assistant jobs, and I was able to work on commercials and get like real gigs. So it was a marketing thing. That's why it's really good. But my point being, I got disillusioned. I got casted on the show on ABC. They said, Alex, you're going to be the star. You're going to be the next Bachelor. We just do what we say. And they said, Alex, we want you to be the villain. Well, I don't watch enough reality show. I don't really watch reality TV, honestly.
Yeah, so this is Glass House,
This is Glass House in 2010. Gosh, Glenn is a genius. The fact that you can remember this. You're like a computer in your brain.
Or I have a very good staff.
Yeah, that's true. You do have a great staff. I want to say everybody here at the Blaze is incredible. And I'm such an honor to be a part of that family. But back to the lecture at hand, I freaking got kicked off the show the first week because they wanted me to be a villain, Glenn, and I acted like an idiot. I was like, F you, you suck. I kind of went, I wasn't the cunning, smart villain. I was the guy, I caused a lot of drama. I made some good TV because the ratings tanked. And then they tried to bring me back in the 5th episode. And that's when I knew, because they told me, Glenn, they said, oh, you're going to be a star. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. And I didn't realize it's all lies. They just...
Oh, no, it's a machine machine that just consumes everything that you have and then just spits you out at the end.
And they could have cared less about me when they were done with me. And so I was really disillusioned. Then I moved back to Dallas. I got a job working at Cheaters and, moved up, became one of the producers. We have 4 producers on the show. And I became good friends with a guy named Clark Gable. And you'll know his grandfather is Clark Gable from Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
The famous actor. So this is his grandson. And if you know anything, because I know you're a movie expert, movie buff, Clark Gable was a wild guy. He drank, the grandfather. I think he died at like 59 of a heart attack. I believe. Clark's first son, not my friend, the dad was wild too. So he grew up in that lifestyle. I believe one time he got in a car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway. That was like a 16-car accident because he crashed into one and they were all parked. But Clark, the grandson, I'm telling you, Glenn, he became very good friends of mine. But he had that California lifestyle where he, had a doctor that prescribed him Xanax, pain pills, Adderall. He had one of those doc-in-the-box type guys. At the end of the 17th season, and this is why I have so much guilt, and this is another reason that motivates me to kind of fight this culture war, definitely fight this culture war. He had a high drug tolerance. He's not just some little kid. He'd been prescribed pills basically his whole life. He went and ran out, so he went and bought some street pain pills, supposedly, and they had fentanyl in it. He took it, died with his 19-month-old baby, and she did not the baby died, but his wife and baby were in the bed with him, and he didn't wake up. And so after that, after he died, they said, Alex, you're going to be the next host of Cheaters, is what they said. They said, you're going to be the host. And I was like, this is awesome, even though it's a crappy reality show, excuse my French.
No, it's funny.
It's funny. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick.
Yeah.
But Glenn, I'm like, this is my big break. I finally did it. I made it. And then right when we're about to film in April 2020, right when if we're getting, the stuff about China and coronavirus and all this stuff, they pick a guy named Peter Guns from New York, a 52-year-old African-American guy. Great guy, actually a really nice guy. I met him. Because they wanted to go with affirmative action, because they didn't want to go with kind of another young, just a different appeal more to the audience, of the people that watch it, which is normal. But this is how I know, because Viacom is a distributor, and they distribute they own MTV, VH1, and CMT, which all played reruns of Cheaters. They made him change his name from Peter Guns to Peter Panky, because Peter Guns, they didn't want to encourage gun violence.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my God!
So long story. So let me wrap it up, because we only have so much time. So they don't choose me as a host, and I go insane. And one of the other people that works on the show, is like, Alex, you just need to start your own podcast. And Glenn, I started my podcast, and when I started going to these meetings at the beginning of the pandemic, earnestly saying, guys, come on, you closed the park where I literally the water fountains that I've used for my dogs, they closed. How is this going to stop the spread of a virus? They just literally wanted to shut down the parks. They looked at me like I was a tinfoil hat idiot. I'm the dumbest person in the world. Then once I started to act absurd, and I started to mock them, I started to kind of, pick at their ego, they went from non-playable characters in the video game of life to all of a sudden now I can basically play them. I can go into that room and I have them eating out of my hands. Maybe they're mad, but the good villain, the good wrestling villain, you want to make them mad.
Right,
So
right.
it's for me.
But you're now becoming, well, first of all, tell me what... You were kicked out in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
Over Clay Jenkins, who was the judge, this nasty judge on COVID, at least here in Dallas.
Oh my gosh, Clay Jenkins is one of the worst. When Governor Abbott took away the mask mandate or lifted it, he sued him.
Right.
Clay Jenkins sued him and lost. And with that lawsuit, he expected taxpayers to fund it, so he still owes about $300,000 in legal fees. Well, what happened was I went there, and Clay Jenkins was arrested in college for wearing blackface, or he called it camouflage. He painted himself black and went inside of a girl's apartment. Multiple girls lived in the apartment and stole their underwear and got caught. I brought up, this
as
is
a prank, or
kind of a college prank, which I know everybody acts weird in college, but this is a little past prank,
Okay, yeah.
It's a little, then they stole their underwear. I mean, it's a little, people are like, oh, well, I believe in second chances, so I don't want to beat them up for that, but I just brought in a D Magazine article and I started to read it. And his crony, a guy named John Wiley Price, I printed out handouts, I handed it to each commissioner and the county judge. And as I started to read from it, immediately John Wiley Price, the commissioner, said, bailiff, get him out of here, get him out of here, starts yelling and screaming, and they removed me. The problem is, with the Dallas County Commissioner's Court, a commissioner does not have the authority, according to their bylaws, to eject me without a vote. Only the county judge. Clay didn't want to eject me, just, I guess, out of principle. They didn't follow the proper procedure because he ejected me without a vote. I sued them, and they've already tried to settle, and they know they're going to lose the lawsuit because even according to their rules, they unlawfully removed me. So I asked for a little bit. I asked for $250,000, which I don't really want. I don't. Mo money, mo problems. But they tried to settle with a $6,000 gimmick. We said no. So we're going to go to court. It's filed in federal court. We got a.
Can I just ask you something? I'm glad you told the Clark Gable story because. I don't necessarily see your life or your career ending well. Okay?
Yeah.
Because you are, first of all, do you have any secondhand shame?
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, because the people, they get embarrassed, but
because I do.
I know that's what the point, and that's part of it is because you want to make people cringe. It's kind of that secondhand embarrassment. But this is the other thing is Glenn. I know that you've had a tragic childhood. Not that my life was as tragic as yours, but I've had tragedy.
We've
all had tragedy.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is I try to kind of for me when I became. And there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the top one is called self-actualization, and probably nobody can reach that. Maybe Glenn, because but you know what I mean. That's the hardest one. But when I started to feel self-actualized or in that direction is when I stopped worrying about the opinions of strangers.
Yes.
That changed my life, Glenn, because even there's a saying, your biggest fan is a stranger, and your biggest enemy is probably somebody close to you. So it's weird. You're trying to appease people that really don't have your best interest. And once I stopped doing that, once I stopped really caring. It opened up, the floodgates.
So let me. I asked for my staff to print this off before I talked with you because these are signs of a sociopath.
Oh yeah, okay,
I just want to say
great.
Lack of empathy for others, kind of. Impulsive behavior.
Oh, 1,000%. The most impulsive.
Attempting to control others with threats or aggression.
Not really necessarily.
Not really, or.
Well, my dogs and my cats. Yeah, I kind of tease them. I want to control them.
Using intelligence, charm, charisma to manipulate others. I get to play them. I'm just
a little
saying.
bit, yes. Okay, Glenn, I'm a diagnosed sociopath. Okay, we can just skip all the answers. Yes, I'm insane for the Ukraine, Glenn, and I wish I wasn't. Every day I look in the mirror and go, Alex, I wish you were not like this. But as Lady Gaga said, I was born this way.
Yeah. So I don't know how to bring this up. You were talking about tragedy, and it made you. Your mom died of COVID.
Yes, Glenn, and let me tell you something. I knew, and I wanted this to come up because I want to talk to you because I know you lost your mother when you were 13 in a really tragic situation, and for me, and when I think about it, I was sitting in my car before I even came in here, I was just thinking about my mom. I was crying because it was a year ago, basically today, that we went into Baylor Hospital and they gave her remdesivir. We said not to, and now we're have a medical malpractice lawsuit against them, which I'm probably not going to win because they have so much authority to give drugs even when I say not to in a life-saving circumstance. My point being is, it's weird. I've had all this success in the past year, and I'm very happy about it, but I don't get to share it with the person I love the most. And she would love this so much. So I was very emotional about that, but it radicalized me because we live in a world now that I don't believe is being run by human beings. We live in a corporatocracy now, basically. There was no empathy inside that hospital. No. Talk about sociopaths. They didn't care. They said, oh, this is the proper protocol, even though they know the protocol's bad. They don't care because it's not a human being. It's not somebody that's empathetic to my feelings. And that's why I even got more radicalized. It's like that internal clock started ticking a little faster. So that's why now, anytime I'm nervous, like before this interview, I'm like, oh, I'm about to go speak to Glenn. I'm a little nervous.
Were you really nervous?
Well, I'm not nervous. I just want to make you laugh. I like it. Yeah. Glenn, I have so much respect for you. I'm not trying to kiss your butt.
It's really nice.
But I mean that 100%, And so I was like, oh, I want Glenn to like me. But I have this method now, and this is why I can go to these meetings, and this is why I can act absurd. And it's created a monster. Anytime I get nervous, anytime now I think about it, I can just think about the time I was holding my mom's hand and how bad I did not want to go in that room. How bad I didn't want to spend that week in there every day. And I can just say, well, I did that. So there's nothing in this entire world that is going to be more scary than that. So now I'm kind of on easy street because everything compared to that, even though it's a tragedy, is easy to handle.
I had the first death threat that was more universal. I had death threats before that were specific people targeting. First one that happened where it was a group that was targeting, and I had to go on the road for 30 days. Different audience, different crowds every day. And it was terrifying. And I got to the end of that tour, and I had come to a place to where I was like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to imagine my death. What's the worst thing that could happen? And the worst thing that could happen was me lying down on the street, and I could see the blood coming out, and my kids were there. Yeah. And I realized I wasn't going to see my family again. Yeah. I imagined that, and it was kind of like, whatever. You know, once you go through something horrible, things kind of just balance out.
Clint, you're exactly right, and I hate to say that but watching my mom pass away, there's nothing really peaceful about it, but it made me at peace knowing that I'm going to be in that situation, and I'm not scared about it. As a matter of fact, now I know that is inevitable because I saw it happen firsthand. So now it's almost a motivating tool to keep me going when I'm tired.
I was going to say it's not a motivating tool for you to
die. No, I want to live forever. Are you kidding? No way. But I'm just saying, it's like, I'm not really afraid to die, and I go, and now I know that you're highlighting a lot of this culture jamming when I go to these city council meetings, but I also like to go to, the protests, and I've been, one video that went viral is when we went to on Cedar Springs, went to Mr. and they had the big sign that says it's not going to lick itself. It was a Drag Your Kids to Pride event. And you go to these events though now, Glenn, all these Antifa, these counter protesters, they all have weapons. They all have guns. They're all on 10 different, psychotropic drugs, whether Prozac, Lamictal, who knows. And so that makes your judgment a little cloudy. As a matter of fact, when I was talking about the corporatocracy, we live in a world, Glenn, where people, they go to a doctor and they say, oh, I'm depressed, and they give you a pill that makes you suicidal. I mean, literally, they say that's one of the main side effects.
I know.
So think about that. How is that empathy? How is that helping people? So you get a little nervous when you go in these kind of hairy situations with people that are, as edgy as it gets, because I'm edgy, and these people are even edgier than me. It is a little scary, but that's where I kind of go back into the, don't be afraid mentality.
So because when I first came on the scene on television, the New York media had never heard of me. Middle of America knew who I was, but the coasts didn't. And so their first reaction was, oh, he doesn't mean this, he's an entertainer. No, I'm a good storyteller, and I can entertain because my job is to get people to look at something. So the best way to do is to make people laugh, et cetera, et cetera. Used to be very funny, and the media boxed me in so tight that because they would report everything I said is dead serious. Every day on the Daily Show is a Glenn Beck. I remember as you call it, every day was a Glenn Beck highlight tape. Right, and they were killing me. I don't know why I'm telling you this story. Where was I driving? Oh, but I'm an entertainer, but I'm also a serious guy. Yeah. My goal is to get people to digest things that they don't want to eat. You know what I mean? What is your goal? And that's a great question, and I tell people this all the time. I believe, people say, now I've been kind of adopted by the conservative media sphere, but really I'm a populist, I'm anti-establishment, I'm even a proud tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist because... I think when you say anti-establishment, I think conservatives are... Oh, of course, of course the conservative is, but... my point being is about my goal. Listen, the conservative values, I'm anti-abortion. I'm obviously more conservative. But my goal, when we go to my goal, is I don't even want to bring people over to conservatism. I don't even want you to have the same viewpoint as me. But what I want to do with my content is I want to make people ask a question. Is this real or is this fake? Because I believe we live in a world of lies from the top all the way down. And then if you just start asking questions, the veneer comes off really quick and the surface is like 1 millimeter. I mean, the truth is right there. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people know the truth. They know the government does not have their best interest, but they suffer from what is called cognitive dissonance, where they know the government lies to you. They know there's classified levels of information that you and I will never be privy to. But at the same time, the guy that knows that information has my best interest. That's what I want to do, is I don't want you to believe me. I don't even want you to have the same viewpoint as me. I have wild viewpoints. But I want you to start asking questions so you realize the world we're living in, there's a lot of lies. Are you ever surprised because I watch you, and it's so funny. If you're watching, and I think maybe it's because you're not in the situation that they're in while you're talking to them, that, I think they take you seriously. But as I'm listening to you, it's all absurd. But our whole life has become absurd. Trans strip shows for third graders, that's absurd. It's evil, but everything we're dealing with is absurd now. Is there a place to where people start to go, wait a minute?
A little bit, but Glenn, this is what, and I say this, and I mean this, and this sounds like put on your tinfoil hat, but I believe the people that rule this world, it comes from the Bible. It comes from Genesis chapter 11, verse 9. If you flip that, that's 9/11. That's neither here nor there. But in that, it's the story of the Tower of Babel. And in that story, Nimrod wants to build a kingdom to heaven to go kill God. And what God did is he said, oh, this is not going to go down. You guys are going to go in 60 different tribes, religions, and then they couldn't communicate with each other. So the people that are ruling the world, the people that want to basically mock us and, subjugate us for a future that's very, a life of despair, these people are reverse engineering that. They want us under one ruler, one global currency, whether, all the globalism, one world order, all those conspiracies. I believe that's true. When you look at the conflict in the Ukraine, literally at the beginning of this conflict, all Ukraine had to do is say, oh, the Donbass region is autonomous, and we're not going to join NATO. So we're sending $100 billion so they can join NATO, so they can be part of basically a one world government type military.
Well, not only that now if they join NATO, now we're required to fight a war with Russia. That's insanity.
It is insanity. And you have people that, I've called out Dan Crenshaw and these people that are so pro-war. I'm a conflict interventionist. I understand that war exists, but I think as human beings, we should be able to come to an agreement where we don't have to get a gun and blow another guy's brains out.
I will tell you, one of the things that I really like about the Blaze, and I tried to set this up. It's not my company now, but I tried to set this up. We don't edit people's material, and we hire good people, and if they break the common decency, bye-bye.
Yeah.
But,
no, there's no censorship.
We've had calls about you.
Oh, sure.
I've had calls. You got to stop. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to talk. I mean, that's him. Talk to him. You've made powerful enemies.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not something I'm necessarily even proud of, but...
No, some of them I would wear as a
Some of them are. Well, and I don't even want to get too deep into it, but I know you're an ESG, environmental social governance expert, and basically, in a nutshell, for the people playing at home that might not know, it's basically like a credit score, social credit score for these companies in order to do business together so that they're, doing whatever their philanthropical requirements. And the reason why this is scary is because they're using all that money for these drag queen story times. And a lot of it is being used for just stuff that doesn't benefit society. But the reason why that's so scary is you have politicians that love this. And if anybody that's really paying attention at home, this ESG, this social credit score for businesses, it's going to happen to citizens like you and I, and it's going to be just like China. We're going to be on that social credit score.
Yeah.
So it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the corporatocracy. It just sucks and this really sucks. And I hate to just sound like a dummy saying it sucks, but we're not being run by human beings. These are multinational corporations. Look at Apple, one of the biggest companies, Glenn. In their Foxconn factories in Shandong, China, excuse me if I mispronounce that, they have suicide nets because their employees are under such poor conditions. And when Apple...
Well, they can't... What I love about that particular province is you sleep on floor 3, you shower on floor 1, and you work on floor 2. Yep. Oh, and you can go up and eat in the cafeteria. You don't ever leave that building. That's crazy.
But imagine if they made that iPhone here in America. Yeah, it may be double the price, but think about all the good American jobs. But they don't do that because these corporations don't care. They're not, they don't have the ability to feel empathy. So they go and instead of, helping the American people, they literally want to subjugate American power to have a globalist rule.
But I think this is changing. I mean, people don't. Our media doesn't show it, but there are protests all over the world.
Yes, sir.
And they know. This is the elites against the people. It's not parties. We're dividing it in parties. It's not. It's elites versus the people. And I think there are people now conservatives, I know I've changed a lot in the last 25 years. And I think there's people that were on the Democratic side who are like, wait, no, I believe in the Bill of Rights. And I think there is a natural reset coming to where we're seeing the garishness, we're seeing the ugliness of all of this fame and what it's turned into. And I think there's a pullback. Let's make things of quality and do things locally. Let's take care of each other. Do you think?
Yeah, I think a little bit, but when you talk about change is so important. It's like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. It's so beautiful. And so a person that is stuck in their ways and not willing to change and not willing to say, oh, well, I have a different viewpoint now, that is one of the biggest problems we have in society. Yeah. It's people realizing, hey, I didn't get that right. And I think I say that all the time. Oh, I thought this and I was wrong. But in society, we have people want to be right. And when you talk about the Republican left, that is meant so we are fighting each other and we're not actually calling out the people that are causing our problems. So,
will you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
You will?
Glenn, if you tell me to jump, I say how high?
Join us on election night.
Oh, 100%. Oh my gosh, what an honor.
Yeah,
yes, sir. Yes, I will be there.
You got to be comic relief, because if that thing goes south, we are going to need comic relief.
Well, and I'd like to get your opinion real quick. See what I'm thinking now, Glenn, and because when you get into office, your policies don't take effect immediately; they take a year or two. So I'm worried that there is going to be a red wave, but we're going to have a financial crash worse than 2008, and then they're going to be able to say, "Oh, well, you guys had all the power. You guys had the red wave. It's a conservatives' fault that caused the inflation." And people are so not smart. I don't want to be rude to people because I'm not the smartest guy. They're going to say, oh, yeah, it's the Republicans' fault.
So I just said this to Stu off the air. I'm doing a monologue on this Monday. Joe Biden just sent up the first flare of where they're going. Mm-hmm. He just held a press conference and said, you elect the Republicans, inflation and the economy is going to get much worse. Well, yeah, we all know. Well, anybody who's paying attention, know it's going to get a lot worse. Already, I don't care who you put in, it's going to get a lot worse. But they will use this, and the media will. Whether the American people buy it or not, I'm not sure, but people tend to vote with their stomach. This guy has done so much damage to himself and to the Democrats that I don't know if they'll buy it this time. They may just say, throw both of you guys out.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this is the thing, though, with the inflation. In my stupid speech where I'm bringing up the restaurants, I'm improvising, even though I have an idea where I want to go. But there's one point I wanted to make, and you're like, what are you talking about? Why is this your example? It's a little unorthodox. Little Caesars Pizza, Glenn, for 40 years, they were famous for selling a $5 hot and ready. They had the cheapest possible pizza. Any family could go there and get a $5 pizza, cheese, pepperoni. People could support their family. In 2022, that pizza went from $5 hot and ready, the same price for nearly, I think it's like 37 years, I believe. Now it's $8.28. You're like, why do you use that as an example? The administration say, oh, it's a 6% increase of inflation. That's real inflation, where you see the price.
Oh, yeah.
And if that's nearly 40% for a pizza, you can extrapolate that to everything.
Well, look, the inflation rate, everybody said there was no inflation, Of course there was. It was all in the stock market.
Yes.
And they were getting all the money. Once they started opening that tap and putting that money into the real economy and just giving it to people, that's when our inflation went up.
Yes.
And look how many times the stock market doubled in 10 years. That's your food. That's your food.
And I hate to be, negative Nancy, because I do believe the world is good, and there is a battle of good versus evil. And I was talking about the Bible, I do believe good will win in the end, but there's going to be tough times, and they want it to be tough, because when you have, this Green New Deal or getting us off, energy independence, I brought that up too. It's like, this is our bread and butter is the fact that we produce.
I know.
And you want to get us off that?
I know.
It's literally getting a gun and shooting your foot.
I know. We'll see you election night.
Yes, sir.
I really enjoy your work. Very funny. At some point, you're going to step on a landmine, but we'll laugh all the way there.
50 Cent said it best, get rich or die trying. So.
All right. Good night, America.